Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Hey, I didn't get a chance to don my Santa hat and everything else and wish you a happy holidays. So consider this happy holidays without the Santa hat. Maybe I'll put it on later. I don't know. And we'll see if I can dig it up. But things got real busy. Anyway, happy holidays, happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy whatever holiday you're celebrating, happy Boxing Day, happy every religious holiday, and happy New Year. So there you go. I think I covered it all. Anyway, I wanted to chime in a little bit because we're working with some clients and some potential clients, and we're looking at various different listings and things like that and trying to figure things out and set things up. And it's very exciting. We have a lot of people that we're going to be working with next year, and we can't wait. It's really exciting. If you're interested in our services, definitely there's a link down below to the intro service call, and you can come in and send us an email. What I wanted to go into today were some things that, we see here and there, and it's a question as to whether or not this is something that just merits a question. You got to pull for a little more information, or whether it's like a whoop, 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 red flag. And, some of the things you can tell right away are red flags. Other things, you might pull the string a little bit. You might still find a red flag, but you might find that it's totally fine. So I thought I'd go over, things that you just want to ask about, check out with the proper authorities on, whatever it is you're checking out, your architects, your engineers, your geometers, and things like that. Obviously, don't take construction advice or renovation advice from an agent because they're not qualified unless they're an actual contractor. So the first thing we're going to kind of go over is not really a red flag. This is more of something where you want to pull for information because I'm seeing it a lot. We've been poking around in Montepulciano. We saw it a little bit in Mola di Bari. I haven't seen it a whole lot in Calabria, but many times somebody who's selling a property will list it with multiple agents because, as you know, the agents, there's no multiple listing service in Italy. The agents will only show you what they have in their inventory. So the sellers think, okay, if I go with this agent, he's going to sell them to these people or market it to these people. If I go to this agent, it's going to market to these. So we're going to get all of these markets and have a better chance of selling our property, and that's fine. It's a legitimate plan. I would do that if I could. But what I see is sometimes even on the same website, even on Idealista, you'll see like 4 or 5 different pictures, same house, different addresses, which I think they deliberately give fake addresses. They don't want to show houses that are not, lived in or whatever, and they don't want to encourage theft or whatever, because empty houses, no matter where you are in the world, are always a little bit of a target. So you can't always tell by the address that's listed on the listing, and that's fine. That's just a simple question. Where's the property located if you make a call? And chances are they'll tell you, or of course, when you line up a viewing, they will have to tell you because you have to show up. So that's one thing. Another thing is many times they'll be listed with all different information. We're seeing, in one property, one said it was 200 square meters. The other said 233 square meters. Another said 210 square meters. I'm like, which one is it? And if they don't have the floor plans on all of them, which they didn't in this case, it's very hard to figure out what the heck are they talking about. Now, many times you'll see the square footage listed and they'll include the balconies, or they'll include the balconies and the terrace. And sometimes you go, wow, 4,000 square meters, or 4,000 square feet, 400 square meters. Wow, that's huge. And you're like this little shoebox property, but it's got a massive terrace. And you're like, okay, that's great for the nice times of the year, but we're going to live in this shoebox. It's got to be good. So one of the key phrases you're going to look for is commerciale. Commerciale, and that means that's part of the house. So if you look at that, don't get caught up in the square footage or the square meters or whatever, just on the listing. Look for commerciale, because sometimes it's going to be different than the square meters that are listed in the listing. Now that's pretty normal, and that it just merits a question. It's not a huge boop, 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 red flag, okay? Another thing in the listing, sometimes they don't have the floor plans. While it's not a huge red flag, it's something you want to ask for. You always, always, always need the floor plans, and you'll know why if you read my book, which is called How to Buy Your Italian Dream Home Without Buying a Property Nightmare. And in that book, we did a whole survey of people, problems they ran into, and then we did solutions. Some of these things our clients almost ran into, but we were lucky enough we had the good professionals that would help keep them out of trouble. We have a lot of really fine professionals on our teams, and they're very good at keeping you out of trouble. And most of them can be pretty easily averted, but a lot of them have to do with the floor plans. Now, before you do anything, even signing a compromesso, you must see the floor plans. And you've got to make sure that they match the property. Now, many times the owners or the sellers have to update the floor plans because maybe they've done something to the property and they haven't updated the floor plans because it costs money, and they're going to use the deposit to do that, which is fine. But make sure you put in your compromesso, that's your agreement to buy and sell. Make sure you put in there, this compromesso is conditional on the floor plans being provided and them matching exactly the property, and that is so important. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is when you go to your act, and this is in my book, when you go to the act, make sure you have the floor plans, make sure you walked the property or somebody that you trusted did, and make sure it matches. Take it with you to the act and look at it when you get there, because sometimes the floor plans that the notario has are not the same as the ones that you might have been given. Now, that doesn't happen often, but it happens often enough that it could be a problem, and you don't want to be that one guy that gets in a hole because of it. Now, the notarios do not walk the property and look at the floor plans. They don't hire a geometra, they don't hire an engineer or somebody to go and make sure that every property's floor plans all match perfectly. That's something you have to do, and that is something you must do. So there you go. I just saved you a bunch of money. But again, get my book, because my book has that in it and a ton of other things, plus a checklist at the end that tells you all the things you need to do when you go forward with the act. Now, what are some huge red flags? Your agent lying to you. That's a good one. And then you find out that he's been lying. So definitely, most of the agents, the vast majority are really, really great. But I've been with agents or people who were representing themselves as agents, and I was there with Antonello, and one of them said, you can put a pool up here on this balcony this terrace if you want to, you put a pool up here. And I said, you can't put a pool up there. What? And I said, Antonello, can you put a pool up here? He goes, no. I go, don't tell them they can put a pool up here. That's just a lie. It was a terrace with nothing underneath. Oh, if you want to build a big cement structure and stuff like that and lose that part of the house, you can put a pool up there. But no, you cannot. Anyway, my point is, if you catch your agent in a lie, or he seems cagey or weird about answering your questions in a way that makes sense, then that's a red flag. Now, here's a little something that you need to do. Whenever you see something that doesn't make sense in a listing or in a representation from the seller or in the property or this or that, make sure you get a correct answer from your agent and make sure that it makes sense. Now, here's another thing that may or may not be a red flag. It may be something that you need more information on. Well, of course you will, but it might also be a massive red flag, and that is the lack of permits. The lack of permits can be ubiquitous in certain areas, and it's abusive, and there are penalties and there are tax penalties that you could get stuck with. And worst case, you could be forced to put it back the way it is on the original floor plans. Okay, again, with the floor plans, got to make sure they're correct, got to make sure that the notario knows that they're correct and that there's nothing abusive, meaning unpermitted, in the property. Now, sometimes it's no big deal. If it's a gazebo or something, you might be able to retroactively get that permitted, and that's not a huge problem. But we're talking, there was one property I saw, and it was a whole wing. It was like a granny quarter with a bathroom and everything else, and it had been abusive for years. Who knows how much taxes are due on that? Who knows what kind of penalty you might pay, but it was gonna be expensive. And it looked pretty close to the property line to me, and it could be conceivable that they could go, nope, it's too close to the property line, you gotta take it down. So these are things that you really need to pay attention to. And again, they're all in my book. So that could be a red flag, or it could be just a question. In any case, get a really good architect. We do have Antonello, and he does go out in Calabria and he tours properties, even abusive ones, and gives his professional opinion based on what he finds. It's really, really valuable, and he doesn't charge that much for it, and he's brilliant. Now, another thing that is a massive glaring red flag is land depressions in or near walls. Now, we were in a house, and I was telling you about this the other day. We were in with a guy who was a property inspector in America, and we saw the wall, and the wall had cracks going up that looked like it just sort of framed, right? Framed the outline. So the structure you could see was here, and the crack went right along the middle. And he's like, oh my goodness. I'm like, what? I knew it looked like a bad crack, and it was. And he says, that looks like structural. It looks like the wall could just fall out, and it also looks like there's foundation problems. So we went downstairs, and sure enough, there was a depression under the wall where water or whatever had sort of dug away underneath the foundation. That's expensive. It's expensive to fix the foundation if it can be fixed. Again, there's your engineer, geometer, or architect, but also to fix the walls. The walls were very highly impacted, and in fact, the other massive red flag is cracks. Now, these little hairline cracks that you see many times are not a problem, but again, I would have every crack looked at by an architect because you never know. Most of them have to do with just settling and everything else, but this one, the crack was inside the property, and you could see it coming down the wall, and then you went outside and it mirrored the inside. That means it goes all the way through. That's a huge structural issue from what I've been told from Antonello. So that's something that's a massive red flag. Cracks, don't take them for granted. You know, the agent can go, oh yeah, that's just a crack, you know, or moisture coming in. Oh, that's just a loose roof tile. No, it's not. Your terrace is leaking. It's all gross underneath your terrace. It's not a roof tile. Ugh, again. So anything like that, anything that requires any sort of renovation or fixing or remediation or anything, always, 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 always get your geometer, engineer, or architect involved and get a really good assessment from them. Make sure you don't get one that the agent recommends. Again, agents are very nice and they're very good, but I have heard of them teaming up with certain construction teams and they have not been honest. So you have to be careful about that. Definitely get somebody that you know and trust to do it. And the final one I'm going to mention again is floor plans not matching what you've been told. Now, when you receive the floor plans in the notario's office, you're going to sign your act. You go in to sign the act, which is the deed. You go into the notario's office. He reads the deed to you, and you have to have an interpreter. Now, another thing that I recommend, and I always do with our clients whenever I can, whenever I'm actively in the cycle, is I ask for the deed that they're going to sign in advance so I can go over every single provision and make sure there's nothing in there that makes my hair stand on end. And to explain to them, this means this means that, to some very important provisions about misrepresentation and fraud and things like that that you need to know about. So when he reads it, make sure you understand everything. Your interpreter is probably not going to tell you everything that he says. He's not going to go over all of the articles and things like that unless you have a really good interpreter like Lucia, who's fantastic. Also, one of the things you're going to get is you're going to get a copy of the floor plans, and you're going to look at them and he's going to say, is that correct? And you're probably going to say, oh yeah. However, you need to make sure that it's correct, because I've heard of people buying a property, they've been represented as, hey, yes, this comes with this terrace, this comes with a garden, and they signed the act and they found out later that the garden was not included or the terrace was not included. And sure enough, they looked on the floor plans after the fact and it wasn't there. So that's something you really have to be aware of when you sign the floor plans. Make sure they're correct. And the best way to make sure they're correct is to get them in advance, walk the property, take your floor plans that you walk the property with you to the notario, and then compare them side by side. There's no notario that I know of that is going to be upset by this or put off by this or anything. In fact, they probably like that you're doing your due diligence. Certainly the notarios that we use are very, very invested on making sure that you get everything you're supposed to get. So again, get my book and study it. It's very important. There's so many things that can go wrong in a cycle like this in Italy because it's so different than America. In Italy, the disclosure laws are very, very light and they're very simple. And there's very little recourse if somebody takes advantage of you. So you really need to know what you're getting into. Another thing that's important is the act is usually about 4 pages long. Last time I bought a house in California, they had to put it on a CD-ROM for crying out loud because it was so big. They didn't want to kill like 90 trees just to give me the encyclopedic edition of our act. In Italy, they're 4 or 5 pages, maybe more at times, but sometimes even less if it's a very simple property. So there you go, guys. Sorry to talk your ear off. I thought these were things you need to know. We're so excited because we've got people coming to Mola, we've got people coming to Calabria, we've got people coming to Montepulciano, and we're going to have a lot of fun this next year. If you're buying a property in Italy, you need our course, definitely take that. You need my book, definitely buy that. And give us a call if you need our services because we're here to help you out. See you soon, guys.